2, 1. Hello, this is Kasha Bailey, Director of Communications and Event Planning for Michigan Assisted Living Association. Welcome to the presentation, Dementia Live, Gain New Perspectives into Life with Dementia. It is my pleasure to introduce you to our speaker, Pam Brandon, President and Founder of AGE-u-cate Training Institute. Welcome, Pam. Go ahead and take it away.
Thanks so much. And it's so nice to be with all of you and be able to virtually share a bit about the Dementia Live experience and new perspectives into life with dementia through simulation experiences like Dementia Live. I know that this is different for all of us. We certainly didn't know that the conference, like many of what was normal for us, was going to go away this year. So you and we and all of us together are learning new ways to adapt, to share knowledge and continue to learn through this time. And I think the best we can do is just take it one day at a time, since we don't know what tomorrow will bring. But that said, I'm very happy to be able to be here and share with you virtually, and glad that you have chosen to see this presentation. So welcome. So new perspectives into life with dementia, which is about simulation training, which is the Dementia Live experience. I want to talk a little bit about what Dementia Live is, so you can get an idea of that. Virtually, we're not going to be able to do as much as we would have had we had the Dementia Live experience at the conference this year, but we do look forward to having it next year. So I will go into a little bit about what it is, and then we're going to dig deeper into the science behind experiential learning and the value behind it, how it can help care partners, and really transform those who are caring for those with dementia, whether it's professionals or families. So let's go ahead and get started. You can see here we've got 3 of our ladies geared up in the Dementia Live, ready for the Dementia Live experience. So it is a simulation experience. We're going to watch it very briefly in the next slide. But just to give you an overview, what you're seeing here is what we call our pre-experience, which is when we gear up our participants to go into the actual Dementia Live simulation experience. So you can see that we have headphones on these ladies. We have eyewear that simulate the loss of peripheral vision. The gloves restrict their tactile processing. And then there's a background noise playing on the headphones, which is confusing for the brain. And so I'm going to show you a short video so you are able to gain a bit of experience or understanding, rather, of what the simulation experience is and what you will be able to experience next year at the conference. This is a slide of getting ready for the experience. So the participants, the 4 participants are listening to the coach, who is on the right, giving instructions on going into the experience room. They have not yet put on their headphones. And now let's play this, and you'll be able to see just for a minute what an experience actually is. This is going to help you with our discussion today. So what you just saw was an actual Dementia Live simulation experience, and we added the background noise so you could get a feel for what was what they were hearing in their headphones. That was what we call the Dementia Live experience, and that simulation experience allows a participant to walk into the world of someone who is living with dementia and try to gain a deeper understanding of what their world might be like. I'm going to talk a lot during this presentation about feelings, about how does it feel. It's going to come up in many slides. It's much of the core of what we are teaching participants when we go through this, when they go through this experience, and after the experience when we lead them into what is called the empowerment session. It's that deep understanding, gaining that deep understanding and feeling for what they might be going through. I'm going to ask you just for a moment to reflect. You can close your eyes. You can just think about this as I'm asking you these questions. But have you stepped back? And if you would step back and just ask yourself, how might it feel to be so scared that tears run down my face? To be so frightened from the symptoms of dementia to the world that I'm in, the tears are running down my face. And I think about this especially in the times that we are in right now, the vast and very sudden changes that we've had to make in care communities and for our older adults living at home who have dementia and families trying so desperately to care well for them. But that feeling that they have as they become more isolated from families, where they are experiencing much more understanding that our protocols in caring now have become infection control driven. And so because of those procedures, it takes more time from staff, and the staff has less time to often spend with them. No doubt our heroes out there are all of the staff and all of you who are working so diligently to provide the care. But as we know, what our residents are going through is oftentimes very frightening right now. How might it feel to feel foolish because I've lost my self-confidence? Because I just don't quite know if what I'm doing is the right thing, or if what I'm about to do might embarrass me. Losing self-confidence is oftentimes this domino effect. All these things I'm going to talk about are such a domino effect that one can affect the other so quickly. Feeling no sense of purpose. We see that so many times with people living with dementia, that as their changes take place and their abilities change, their reactions to things change, that they lose that ability to tap into what their sense of purpose is. So important in our person-centered care practices that we try to give them that sense of purpose for being able to live as best a life as they can daily and find joy. Having a lingering sense of boredom. I don't know about all of you, but I think we've all had a touch of this in the last month to 6 weeks, where our lives have changed so drastically, our routines have changed, that at times, even when we aren't working so hard, that so many of you are doing, and we're home, we're not doing the same things in our free time at all. So has that touch of boredom set in for you? But do we know what it's like to live 24/7 with that? Do we understand what it's like to have a lingering, long-term feeling of boredom? And then to feel less than a whole person. Can you see where everything I've just mentioned can lead to a person feeling like I am no longer whole? I'm not who I was. I don't entirely remember who that was, but I know I'm not whole right now. The fear of the unknown is frightening. It's mysterious. It's unpredictable for care partners, certainly can be unsettling. And the fear of not understanding someone can lead us to not having that sense of, what do I do? What do I, because it's fearful, because it's always changing, because I don't know what the next hour or even the next minute may be, how am I going to be able to care for this person? Certainly these are overriding many people who care for people with dementia is this fear of I'm not going to be equipped to do it well. So what if we could turn that fear into action? If we could somehow compartmentalize what we're looking at and turn that fear into empowerment, to having the tools to be able to respond. We certainly know that none of us are experts in dementia, are we? We have a passion. We feel greatly the need to better the lives of people living with dementia, or you wouldn't be listening to this presentation. But I think the space that we are in, I can safely say we all care. We care for the needs that they have, providing them a better life, and doing all we can as care partners to change that, because it's really our responsibility as care partners to change what we do, because those persons living with dementia can't make those changes. And you understand this as you go through a dementia live simulation experience, or any simulation experience, that you have lost control of what you are able to do. You're not able to achieve simple tasks. And so it leaves you with all those feelings I just talked about. And for care partners, certainly saying, oh my goodness, you know, how can I develop the tools that I need to be a better care partner, which is our goal. I love this quote: when caring takes courage, if you learn to listen for clues as to how I feel instead of what I say, you will be able to understand me much better. Listen for clues. Understand how I feel. Those might be easier said than done. We understand that. It's not always easy. But if we look at that core knowledge that we can provide care partners in, again, a deep dive of feeling and understanding and empathy, what might change? What might we have the power to change? The dementia effects umbrella is what we refer to. We've seen the dementia umbrella many times, which is a wonderful descriptive and diagram showing how dementia is the overall symptom. And then underneath we have the reversible and we have irreversible symptoms of dementia, and explains that, but we don't focus on that in our learning tools and our objectives for Dementia Live. We instead focus on what we call dementia effects. So not so much the knowledge of what is happening on the lower half of this diagram, but instead we're focusing on the effects that a person with dementia is having. So sensory loss, problem solving, mood changes, challenges in communication, personality changes, language challenges, changes in memory, behaviors, and judgment. These are all the effects of dementia, whether it's caused from Alzheimer's disease or Lewy body disease or Parkinson's, even if it's a reversible form of dementia caused by depression, caused by infections or vitamin and mineral deficiencies, many things that can cause both of these. This is not a full list on either side, as we know. But the point being that we instead focus on what are the effects, what are the challenges that we're seeing right now. Again, we know that there's changes taking place in the brain. We know that as it progresses, there are the plaques and tangles, but we focus on making this simplistic because there's so much to learn through simulation training that in the time it takes, and what we're focusing on is for that participant to leave with tools that are applicable to making positive changes immediately in the quality of care that they provide their resident or their loved one. So this brain diagram simply shows the different parts of the brain and what the effects are, the planning and contextual action, sensation, the part of the brain that sees objects, that is our vision portion, the portion of the brain that is names and places. All these things are what sensory change taking place happens in the brain, and it is all changing with dementia. So let me talk for a moment about dementia-related sensory change. Our ability to take in and respond to incoming sensory data changes over time. This is a normal part of aging. What we see and hear and feel and smell and touch and taste changes over time, even without the effects of dementia. Simply put, we take in and process differently as we age, don't we? Environmental and health factors have, aside from dementia, will have an effect on the changes and the rate of changes that take place. As an example, prolonged noise, loud noises. So someone maybe who's worked in a factory might be an example, may see that their hearing changes begin earlier in life. Someone with macular degeneration or diabetes will see effects on their vision earlier in life, often, not always, but often. Smoking will affect our sense of taste and our sense of smell. So all of these changes that affect one's sensory stimulations is changes, but the effects of dementia will often further compromise sensory change. Let's talk first about vision changes. So just looking at that whole, I think you can imagine what I'm going to talk about, and that is if you put your hands over your eyes like this and just form circles, and you try to look around, this will give you a very, very good effect of how our peripheral vision changes with the progression of dementia. To where we're only seeing through maybe a tiny hole as it progresses. This affects our personal space, and it affects what we call our productive space. So for instance, if somebody comes up behind you and you have your field of vision is quite restricted, you can imagine the startle reaction a person might have. If you come up, just put your shoulder on their, put your hand on their shoulder, or you come around from the side where they haven't seen you and you start talking to them. This can certainly lead to a startling effect. Well, their startle effect may or may not be understood by the care partner. If the care partner doesn't really understand the vision changes taking place and the effects of the vision changes, they may not respond appropriately or in the best manner. So instead of, if they were properly trained and had the knowledge of this, they might not do that to start with, or if they do this or see someone else doing it, they know how to properly react to that person. Instead of two startle reactions, the care partner would be more empowered with tools to be able to respond to that. Another example might be, imagine, especially in a care community, that if someone with vision changes is sitting with their plate in front of them. And so do this along with me, if you will. Just imagine that you have a plate of food and you're looking down at it, and someone asks you a question and you look up to follow their voice. So you're looking up and then you look back down, and instead of all the way looking down at your plate, your eyes focus on the plate across from you, because that is what you're seeing. That's your field of vision. So that person might think that that plate of food across the table is theirs, and they might pick it up. And you can see how that can cause a confrontational situation, potentially. Again, knowing these vision changes, experiencing these vision changes, and understanding how compromised it can make a person with dementia will be greatly effective for their care participant to not only be able to potentially avoid those situations, but respond to them as they are happening. How about hearing changes? Hearing sounds and understanding sounds are two different abilities, aren't they? Unfortunately, so many care partners do not understand the hearing changes and what that means with someone living with dementia. So what do we naturally do? And certainly we see this often with families. We think that if we talk louder, someone is going to understand us. I always say to care partners, do you like to be yelled at? Well, no, we don't like to be yelled at. Neither does a person with dementia. And while they may have a loss of hearing at sounds, perhaps those changes for them are words that become garbled or misunderstood. Maybe they are not able to process at the speed that they once were. So we have to slow down. So before we rush to screaming at them, let's understand a little bit more about what changes take place with dementia that would be more in line with what might be going on with them. We could avoid embarrassing someone or frustrating someone by talking too loudly, when all we would need to do is perhaps slow down, perhaps wait for them to process what we've asked them, understanding the brain changes that are taking place. Now let's look at tactile processing. So tactile processing includes simulations associated with touching and being touched. Tactile processing takes place first, of course, in the brain. That's where it starts, which then sends the signal to, say, your fingers or other body parts to react to that simulation. So the more compromised our brain for persons living with dementia, the more compromised the sensory processing that takes place with touch and tactile processing. So when a person loses some of their tactile processing, Things like a hot burner. Maybe that's something that might be very common, or might be common for someone with dementia. So they don't understand any longer that touching a hot burner will burn them. They may touch that hot burner. It may take a while before their brain tells their fingers or their hand that it's burning. Obviously, there are many repercussions for that besides it being dangerous. But let me ask you this: if a care partner understood the tactile challenges that someone might be living with who had dementia, might even touching a stove have been avoided, and how we respond when they touch the stove and it finally hurts them, how would that change? And again, I stress, none of us are experts. And so what one person experiences could be totally different than another person, and it could be at another level. So these tactile changes and all of the sensory changes differ between person to person. We don't always know exactly what the changes are taking place in the brain, which is why dementia is complex. Let me talk about Kolb's experiential learning cycle. This is the science behind Dementia Live. So David Kolb, is a Harvard-educated professor and educationalist who specializes in learning, individual and social change, and career development and professional education. So in 1984, he created what is called Kolb's experiential learning cycle, which is what I've diagrammed here. So in this theory, he states that if we have a concrete experience, that the impetus is to take concrete experiences and that they can be transferred to very powerful active experimentation or actions by going through the cycle that he created. So the concrete experience in this situation would be the experience itself, the experience of a participant going through the experience of what it might be like for a person living with dementia. That's what I showed you in that short video clip earlier. So a person goes through the experience, they're having that experience themselves. They go on to what is called reflective observation. This is what is so critical in this circle to make it so powerful, is what we call our empowerment session, where we're applying what that person has learned, talking about how they felt, and then reviewing and reflecting on that experience. And then we move on to learning. That's our tools. What are the tools that we can learn from? Once we have this very strong and powerful experience where we walked in someone else's world for just a small time, we have these feelings, we have this deeper understanding. Now, how do we apply it to the situation at hand, so to speak, to applying it to our care partnering tasks, to being able to better communicate with a person living with dementia, providing improved care, certainly being able to improve their quality of life because we have that very deep understanding. And then the last part of this cycle is what is called the active experimentation. So taking the tools and applying them. So you can see why I mentioned in the beginning, you're going to hear me talk a lot about feeling and how important that is. But also important is being able to take those feelings and move it correctly through the learning cycle so that it is effective and powerful and changes us. We want transformation. We want to be able to help participants gain the knowledge in a very effective manner so that they can make a very effective change, and that it will be those tools that they learn from will become more powerful because of the experience. Let me talk for a moment about the power of experiential learning. And this too is part of the research that KOLB did, and many others throughout the last 30, 40 years on how do we learn differently. Oh, we're learning so much about this right now, aren't we, with our school children going online and not having as much of an experience as they would have in a classroom. And you know, the effects on this are going to be very interesting to see. But what we know from science is that lecture-based teaching, so that is what you would learn in online training with just someone talking. So it would be equivalent to me talking about what is dementia, and a series of questions and answers, and that teaches can be, you know, the knowledge dump, so to speak. How much do we retain from that? And this is always a challenge for speakers. Certainly it is when I speak at conferences, or you know, many other people, professors and teachers, and you know, we look at how are we going to make sure that the person that I'm teaching learns as much as possible, that somehow they're changed by what they're listening to. Generally, a lecture-based teaching is going to have a retention rate between 8 and 10%. 8 and 10%. That is fairly low. What happens when we put that teaching into experiential-based learning models? That retention rate can soar to 85% or more. If we apply that in the teaching model of KOLB'S, of what KOLB has taught us, if we take that experiential-based teaching and move it through the processes of the cycle that says we will have that abstract thinking, we'll be able to talk about it, we'll move through the teaching, and then we will be applying it. So many people who go through simulation experiences say, that was the most powerful experience I've had. Oh my gosh, I had no idea that my mother goes through that. I had no idea that my residents go through this. And then they remember it for years. So should we be doing more experiential learning in staff training and for families? We need to consider that. We need to consider it just from these kind of statistics that tell us we will have a more powerful outcome in retention by incorporating experiential learning. How about experiential learning as a foundational learning tool? If we look at layering, if we want to say, I don't know that's the right term, but if we start with a strong foundation of simulation experiential learning tools as much as possible, will it make a difference when we look at other training that can be added onto this? I won't say layered, added onto this. Certainly, that is very effective. We know that if we start with a learning model that says, first I'm going to experience this, the application of other learning tools or knowledge will make more sense for that person, because again, they've had a strong foundation. When we experience what dementia may be like, we will deepen our empathy. We will expand our understanding and our compassion for that person. just by being able to say, I walked into that world and I felt it myself. Very, very powerful. So you are actively involved with the experience, obviously. You're doing it yourself. You are going to feel something change in experiential learning. You're going to feel physical, emotional, and potentially spiritual changes. It's that impactful. You're going to walk in the shoes of someone, walk in someone else's world, step into their world, and it's for a brief time. You will no longer then be an inquisitive observer. Once you've experienced something and you can understand what that person goes through, you can also say, well, I'm not just an observer because I was where you were. So I have another level of understanding. If I could walk into your world, even for just a short time, I will feel what you might be going through. Perhaps I will better understand the challenges you face each and every day. I will be more empathetic to your needs. If I understand you better, I will be open to learning new ways to communicate with you. I will learn that there is so much more that you have to offer, and that inside you're the same person. So much of what we learn with reminiscence training, with validation, with all these different tools that we have now to gain deeper perspectives with someone with dementia. They're wonderful, and we're seeing so much more. We have the capability to find that person inside. If they've temporarily lost that, if they've lost their ability, we have so many tools now to be able to connect with them at a much deeper level so that they find a trusted care partner. They find in you someone that we can begin to draw out that person inside, right? I just need to feel this for myself. And again, I told you I would be using the word feel a whole lot. And I think, there's just no better way to explain that, the importance of that, basically. So improving quality of life and quality of care, as we know, are federal initiatives. They're what our person-centered care, culture change initiatives come down to, that we're trying so hard to make great strides in. And certainly the concern right now with the prevalence of COVID and the changes that we have had to make in care procedures, and certainly the social distancing, and just we've had to make such vast changes in such a short period of time. It certainly is a concern of all of ours. Where are the person-centered care initiatives? Are they moving forward? Have we stepped back? I think it's safe to say that we're going to have some challenges. There's going to be a fallout. We don't know how long. We don't know how severe, but there will be a fallout from this. So that moving forward, as we're training new staff, as we're regrouping and seeing what our very fragile normal will look like, hopefully we're also looking at what is it going to take for us to make some changes in how we're educating, how we're training, what is going to be most impactful for our staff, for our families, and to improve the well-being of persons living with dementia for any of our residents. Certainly, we're going to see some things that probably discourage us greatly, and we're going to have to just get back up and see how can we create change, how can we make things better. Can we transform how we think? Can we transform how we feel? Yes. Can we transform how we care? Absolutely. We have the ability to do that. We just need to look through a different lens. Okay, little fun that we're going to have right now. I'm going to ask each of you to settle in your chairs wherever you are and sit back for a moment. And again, this is the micro version of Dementia Live. It's the best version that we have to share with you by doing it virtually, but it will be something that maybe you can get a little glimpse of it, and then next year at the conference you can come back and go through the full experience. So I'm going to start by playing the confusion sound that you had heard briefly before, and I'm just going to throw out some things for you to do. This is going to be very free form and not structured, but I want you to just follow along with me the best you can. And so I will ask you to go ahead and you have to do nothing but follow what I'm going to say. Okay, I'm going to turn up the volume, and I'm going to just ask while you're sitting in your desk, if you would just pull a piece of paper that you might have there, and if you would just look for, if you've got a pen, hopefully, just circle all the B's that you see on that page. If you happen to have your purse beside you or your wallet, if you would take out your driver's license and look at that, your number on your driver's license, and if you would say out loud the number on your driver's, or the expiration date on your driver's license. You probably have some things to do today. I'm certain all of you have a very long list of things to do today. So if you would write down the 3 priorities that you are going to do today. Write those down if you would. And while you're sitting there, if you have a drink of water or tea or coffee, just go ahead and take a sip of that. You can put that down afterwards. Again, if you have your phone next to you, who doesn't have their phone next to them, you would take that out and add 356 plus 171 on the calculator. That would be fantastic. See what that total is, and you can write that down. Hopefully you didn't forget that I had asked you to circle the B's on a piece of paper and write the 3 most important things that you had to do today. You might just take that phone back again and text a loved one and just tell them right now how you're feeling as I give you these tasks to do. So if you will do that and just follow along, and don't forget your license that I asked you to do and that list. And okay, how are you feeling? What just happened? Take a moment, if you will, and I'd like you to write down just that. Just look at some of the emojis we have provided for you and tell me if some of these, and I know this was a micro version of what a full experience looks like, but tell me if any of these are something you feel. Maybe angry, bored, scared, terrified, annoyed, miserable, worried, certainly frustrated, because I bet not any of you got all the simple tasks I asked you to do, which probably wouldn't have been difficult at all had you not had the confusion sound. I didn't give you the tasks so quickly. And certainly if I was sitting in front of you, I would be seeing exactly what you would be doing, and I'd be able to respond accordingly. But certainly some of these, I bet, are what you are feeling. We feel lonely, we feel worried. As care partners, we say, how can we change? How can we use this to provide better care? Simple communication tips. As this is one example of the many tools we can use with simulation, but eye contact, always best. What if you had looked at somebody? Listen with understanding and interest. limiting conversations to short, simple sentences. Never argue. Reminisce when it's appropriate. Limit conversations to short, simple sentences. That's really easy and it's really powerful. In fact, all of these tools are powerful. Might it make more sense by learning that having that foundational knowledge and experience to be able to put these tools into play? So tips for understanding, that's this closing the loop that I talked about in the KOLB'S cycle. So ask questions, look for a pattern of behavior, be positive and smile, be able to identify what nonverbal communication that they express, validate what they say, join and distract, that's never argue, and step back when it's necessary. Simple tools. Can we put these tools into practice? Yes, we can definitely put them into practice. As soon as we learn this, we can learn a tool that we can apply. We all need to feel empowered. So that means tools. These are some of the tools of many, many tools we provide with this. Whether we're using this as staff training, using it to help families, we need to provide a tool so that whatever their challenge is, they will walk away with a tool that's applicable to what they are challenged with the most at that time. When we are empowered, we do create positive change. There is no doubt that we have the ability to create positive change. We see that we're doing this, not only with this program, but with so many more. We know that by using a foundational tool and being intentional in the way we are training and the way we're approaching training with staff, that it can be very effective. I'm going to switch gears again as we're coming to nearing the end of this. Again, I'm a lover and a very strong believer in experiential education. I, by the way, was a family caregiver, which was the impetus for all my work that we are doing at AGE-u-cate today. I also was in my former life, I created a hands-on children's museum. So experiential, hands-on education is a part of my blood. I see it, I saw it work with children, and I knew that it is powerful and effective for everyone. And we certainly know from our research that it is effective, extremely effective in helping care partners. So we believe in empowerment through positive change and doing it effectively. Okay, I'm going to switch gears for a moment and we're going to look at experiential memories just because this is kind of fun. So I want you to look at these two pictures for just a moment, and I can't ask you the question and have you chat in, but I can ask you to just think about for a moment what thoughts came in your mind as you looked at the roller skates or the sponge rollers. Did you think about your days as a youth with the roller skates? Now, not all of you, it's not applicable to all of you out there, but certainly many of us grew up with roller skates with the keys and how the straps came off often, and we probably wiped out a time or two. But you know, I bet some of you are thinking about the fun you had, maybe with your siblings, cousins, other family members, with friends. And I bet it brought a smile to your face. Look at the sponge rollers. Did some of you think about either you wearing them yourself, or maybe a family member? Maybe guys out there will remember their sisters or their moms wearing these. And then I'll ask, when was the last time you thought about either of these? You probably haven't, but you may now think about your sponge rollers and Maybe your grandmother put them in your hair, or your mom, and those were very special times when they took them out and they brushed your hair, and you have this sensation of memories that makes you smile and connects you with people and places and things from the past. Those are emotional memories. And all it took was a picture. All it took was looking at something to draw out those memories. How about this? Wow. When was the last time you thought about this? Origami, the paper origami fortune teller? Who can forget this if you were from the era of those days, you know, playing with those on the playground with your friends? How about a 45 RPM record player? Days gone by. But many of you, I bet, look at these and it sparked an emotion, a memory. It sparked a feeling that brought you back to connections, happy times. So a person with dementia can look at these pictures and they might not remember the circumstances, but they might very well remember how it makes them feel. And you know what's important on this little short exercise that I did is that you were able to experience emotional memories yourself. You were able to say, oh my goodness, just with a picture, looking at a thing, an object, I too was able to have a spark, to something ignited in me. And that was pretty cool. We can do the same with people with dementia. It's just another tool. It's another tool in our toolbox that's easy, effective, that is powerful, and that can get us back to person-centered and culture change and all the things that we're all striving for despite the circumstances that we're in. So is your training meeting the needs of today's staff? I'll ask you, is it feasible? Is it feasible to do this training? Does it work? Does it work in different environments? Is it flexible? It needs to be very flexible. I think if any of us have learned anything over this last few months, it is flexibility, change, adaptability, and being able to change again. Is it effective? Is it doing what we need it to do? Is it meeting the needs of fast changing staff and new staff coming in with various, the different cultures we have in our staff? Is it meeting the needs of existing staff who need help? And is it simple? We just need to get back to the basics. Those are the most effective. We know that we can take action. We're all taking action every day. There's no doubt that this has allowed us to look at everything differently. Hopefully, it will be a time that we will have enough, you especially will have enough time to sit back and reflect on what we can improve on and why we need to improve it, on how we educate, how we train, how we give our families the tools they need. All these things they're paramount. And we know right now what is paramount is safety. But hopefully this will have given you some ideas and some structure to look again at the power of different types of training and certainly experiential learning and what it can do for you. And yes, we can all look at being creative in how we're approaching the people around us to train them and to provide the tools that they need. So with that, I'm going to thank you all for the time that you spent. Here is my contact information. I'm certainly happy to talk to any of you, answer questions, and again, stay safe, stay well. We look forward to being at next year's conference with our team to be able to share the Dementia Live simulation experience with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Pam. And on behalf of MALA, I want to thank our listeners for joining us today.